So far, we have traveled across Tirisfal Glades, Silverpine Forest, and now, nestled amongst the trees and mountains of Hillsbrad and Alterac, we have had the pleasure of remembering the wars fought on this land. We have fled from ogres, and we have delved into the forgotten alchemy practiced in the shadows by the Forsaken. But as we have traveled these lands, there has been an elusive enemy that has been stalking us the entire way. Concealed in the darkness of the mountains and hidden away in Hillsbrad's tall grasses, this particular enemy is a proud foe who will suffer none to enter his land uninvited. But alas, how quickly we are to forget this dangerous enemy lurking in the mountain's fog. That's why today, everybody, let me introduce you to one of Classic WoW's forgotten factions and the Dark Masters they serve. Before we begin, I do have to thank this channel's sponsor, Zygor, who is linked down below in the description. It is World of Warcraft's Ultimate Guide add-on, and if you decide to check them out and you enjoy the product, use code Nixxiom for 20% off. High above the Hillsbrad foothills is a reach of mountains, towering over the surrounding land. Blanketed in an eternal winter, these spires of stone and ice were the seat of a once mighty kingdom. Proud in its history, Alterac stood for generations alongside its neighboring sister kingdoms, Lordaeron, Stromgarde, Gilneas, and others, a kingdom carrying the legacy of Arathor and Strom from years past. But they are a topic for another day when our path takes us east into the Arathi Highlands. It was the people of Alterac who negotiated trade between their neighboring kingdoms and the dwarven Longbeards, and it was they who Stromgarde considered their greatest rival in the region. Often, these two kingdoms would clash due to politics or disagreement, and little to no ground would be gained or lost between them. So resilient were those men of the mountains, Stromgarde's sons found themselves often buried and forgotten beneath the great depths of Alterac's snow. Banners of orange waved proudly in the winter's blizzards and could clearly be seen for miles around within the summer fog that blanketed the land. That was the kingdom of Alterac in its day, a jewel of the north of the eastern kingdoms, perhaps destined at one point to be a nation greater than all others. And yet corruption and cowardice has a way of slithering into men's hearts like a serpent, especially when a kingdom is faced with so terrible of foes seeking its ruin. In a time of great peace, when Alterac was delighting in its prosperity, that is when the orcs came. When the dark portal opened in the south and ruin came to Stormwind, word reached the north quickly of the city's destruction. The savage greenskins, corrupted by yet-to-be-understood demonic magic, stormed through their accursed waygate and wreaked havoc on all those who stood in their path. The villages surrounding Stormwind fell first, and soon the city itself. The stone walls melted from how great the fires burned, and the orcs, drunk with battle lust, spared none as they washed through the city streets like a rising tide. No soldier they spared, nor woman nor pink child. The orcs delighted greatly in the honor they won for themselves that day. But in the north, however, the human kingdoms were greatly disturbed. Refugees from Stormwind fled north. Those who survived braved the cold of the Khaz Mountains, as well as the shivering seas and harsh storms offshore. When the survivors landed in the Northlands, they told their terrible tale of the ruin of their homes and the death of their king, assassinated by the orcs, they said. Now all the leaders of the northern human kingdoms met and discussed what to do, lest they be afflicted to the same terrible fate. Peasant, noble, and king were all united by their terror, for the horde would soon sail and march north. Something had to be done. There was a great summit that was called the Meeting of Seven Kingdoms: Alterac, Dalaran, Lordaeron, Gilneas, Kultaras, Stromgarde, and the remnants of Stormwind. And together, these seven groups decided that if they were to survive the Orcish invasion of Azeroth, they would need to stand united. Alterac, however, for reasons of their own, were cautious about getting entangled in this conflict. After all, their mountains were high and cold. What would orcs care for their lands compared to the rich and fertile territories of their sister kingdoms? It was King Aiden Perinold of Alterac who raised a voice of opposition to this military union of the Seven Kingdoms. He pushed instead for negotiation with the Greenskins, but his word was quickly shot down. These were monsters, it was shouted, with no thought or sense behind their blood fury. They could not be negotiated with. War was the only language these savages could speak, and King Aiden reluctantly went silent. The Second War, as it's now called, saw the involvement of some of Alterac's soldiers who felt patriotic for kingdoms they had never known. They were men of Azeroth, humans, and their brothers and sisters in lands afar had suffered tremendously in the south. Perhaps this is what motivated them to board ships and take up positions in battalions to go and fight the savage horde. Whatever the reasons, compared to Lordaeron and Stromgarde, Gilneas, and the other kingdoms, Alterac sent little in the form of assistance south, something that greatly displeased the other kings of the north. It was during this conflict with the orcs and their twisted magics that the Alliance saw a number of great victories, but also terrifying defeats. The orcs, driven by their lust for conquest, but also exploration of this foreign world, made their way north until they arrived at the southern reach of Quel'Thalas, the home of the High Elves. And it was then, as the orcs began to clash with elven steel, that King Aiden Perinold of Alterac found that a shadow of doubt had crept its way into his evening rest. His dreams became nightmares, and his days were filled with discussion with hopeless nobles. If the ancient power of the elves could not stop the orcs, it was clear that humanity could not either. And that is when something changed in the noble hearts of Alterac's leaders. Fear for safety became paranoia, and obsession with death became panic solutions to problems hundreds of miles away. On a fateful day, the king of Alterac contacted the war chief of the Horde, Orgrim Doomhammer, and attempted to do what he had suggested all that time ago in council with the other kingdoms. The king tried to negotiate for the survival of his kingdom. Discussion went long into the night, but when all was said and done, Alterac agreed to allow the orcs to pass freely through their mountains without fear of harassment. And in return, Alterac would be spared the orcish horde and would even be safeguarded by Doomhammer once the other human kingdoms were conquered. Historians agree that whatever noble character Alterac had, it died on that day, for it was after this dark agreement was struck that further corruption spread through the high mountains. Alterac became responsible for harassing Alliance caravans, for plotting assassination attempts, and even guiding orcish war vessels at sea. But it was only after the Battle of Crestfall did the Alliance truly discover the degree of betrayal that they had suffered. Survivors of the battle, Alterac soldiers, were captured and interrogated, who revealed what had happened in King Aiden's court. And when the news of this scheme between Alterac and the Horde had fully spread across the Alliance's war tents and council chambers, all eyes became set on King Aiden's high, white mountains. Alterac, as far as the other kings of the Alliance were concerned, was to be brought to ruin, along with their filthy Horde allies. And so it happened. Stromgarde marched on Alterac first, and then Lordaeron, led by King Taranis himself, and the once mighty Alterac kingdom, high-seated amongst the snowy peaks, was brought low by the combined power of the Alliance. The orange banners burned in the night, and the fog retreated from the hills to reveal all of the secret dealings that had occurred in this land. Many of the king's loyalists fled, and yet, despite the city's destruction at the hands of its former allies, the king of Alterac and those who remained continued to honor their pledge to the Horde, hoping, praying, and dreaming that the orcs would pull off a great victory and bestow lands and honors on Alterac and their king. Yet, no such victory ever came. In the aftermath of the Second War, after the Horde had been defeated, Alterac fell into greater ruin. King Aiden, who had been placed under house arrest and stripped of any true authority that he once commanded, he died in his sleep. His kingdom, however, now under Alliance martial law, became a den of banditry, murder, and degeneracy. Men starved in the winter's cold, and those who were smart did what they could to flee the dying lands. That is when ogres crept into the ruins of Alterac's villages and city like maggots on a corpse. The local Yeti population exploded in their numbers, and the mountains soon became too dangerous to travel through alone. During the events of Classic WoW, the condition of Alterac is what you see here, one of destruction. For King Tyrannus and the Alliance showed this kingdom no mercy for its betrayal. And yet, my friends, although the failure of King Aiden Perinold led to the doom of his land, there still remained a remnant of his people, now led by Aiden's son, whose name was Aladin Perinold. And it was Aladin, after his father's death, who came to the conclusion that the Horde truly were savage beasts who never should have been regarded as allies of Alterac. For the prince blamed the Horde for the doom of the kingdom, believing that the orcs had failed to protect Alterac as they had pledged to do. And then there was the Alliance, the so-called sister kingdoms that had descended upon Alterac in their fury and put its people to the torch. That is why those who remained in the mountains, led by Prince Aladin, they began to call the Horde, yes, even Thrall's Horde, and the Alliance, their mortal enemies. They sought only to restore the glory of their former land through whatever means they could. And now, everyone, we arrive to it at last, the shadowy enemy that has followed us through this entire adventure in Hillsbrad foothills and Alterac Mountains. This was the birth of the Syndicate, one of Classic WoW's lesser-known factions. No doubt while roaming in Hillsbrad foothills or the Alterac Mountains, you have encountered these orange face mask-wearing stealthed rogues and sorcerers holding on to what little remains of this land. Strombrad is a place of great operation for them, as well as camps all across the Alterac Highlands in the north. And it is there, during Classic WoW, that one can find Aladin Perinold scheming and brooding on ways to reclaim his kingdom, not with honor or valor on a battlefield, but with treachery and cutthroat tactics on the road, or perhaps something far darker. For you see, one of the adventures that we can go on during Classic WoW is a mission to assassinate this aspiring king, and while doing this quest, something can be discovered that likely most players overlooked. Before I tell you this though, I just wanted to say, if you're enjoying the video, please consider hitting the subscribe button, as we are nearing 500,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel. And if you want to show further support, become a channel member and get access to behind the scenes videos, or get yourself a Tales of Warcraft shirt over on our merch store. But now, let's continue. Downstairs from where the would-be king is located is a mysterious orc, and his name is Nagaz. Now, who is this orc? Why is he present with the Alterac prince and his nobles? Well, these answers are not quite so apparent at first. Perhaps he's just a former ally from the original Horde? We're not entirely sure. And we wouldn't know the answer to this question unless we happen to stumble upon a certain encrypted letter held by the Syndicate far to the south of where Nagaz can be found. For it's here at one of the Syndicate camps that a letter can be discovered resting on a table, and upon trying to read it, we would discover that this letter is magically encrypted, its contents unreadable, and a mystery. Now, we would then go on a short but lengthy quest chain, at least in regards to traveling, that would allow us to discover the mystery of what this letter says. And once it's revealed, we learn all about this mysterious orc hiding away with Prince Aladin Perinold. And although I could simply just go over what the letter says, perhaps it might be better for me to just read the letter to you all, and you can tell me if you notice something odd or curious about what is written. This is what the encrypted letter says.
Greetings, Master. Forgive me for the method of sending this message. My shadow mages in Alterac are intent on their tasks, forcing me to use a foreign messenger, conscripted from one of our new allies, to bring you this report. But I have encrypted this letter with one of our most esoteric ciphers. its words are safe from these yokels. Our plans progress well. As mentioned, we made an alliance with a group of humans who call themselves the Syndicate. Its leaders were once the nobles of Alterac, and they crave to once again hold sway here. And so they have struck a bargain with us. A bargain they will regret. Today the Syndicate holds little power in these lands, but they know the area well and have assembled sufficient manpower for the tasks ahead. With proper guiding, I am confident that soon the Syndicate will again rule Alterac. In addition, we have urged the Syndicate to aim for the city of Stromgard in the nearby Arathi Highlands. The city is a battlefield between our forces, ogres, and the humans of Stromgard, but we feel that with careful tactics, we will own this once great city. And when that is done, the next stage of our plan may begin. With a nation of our own and a base of power in this region, we may then prepare the way for the third host. Soon, the Legion Lords will reward our works by raining fire from the skies once again. The Council was wise to appoint you head of the Argus Wake, marshal of our strategies in the land of humans and dwarves. And I am honored to serve as the hand of your will in Alterac. In Sargeras' name, Nagaz, Argus Hierophant.
As already mentioned, since Alterac's doom, those who remain have sought to rebuild their former kingdom, to restore it to the glory that it once had before it was felled by the surrounding nations of the Alliance. And in their attempts to restore what was lost, clearly the people of Alterac, their prince included, have turned to darker dealings with a group called the Argus Wake. Now, for many of you, likely you've never heard of this particular organization, and you shouldn't blame yourself for it, for this is, well, admittingly, this is the only quest or mention of the Argus Wake in all of classic WoW. Everything that we know about them comes from this one letter and this one quest chain, yet it does reveal quite a bit. Clearly, the Argus Wake are involved with the Burning Legion, hence the name, and it is a part of the Legion's scheme for Alterac's remnant to reclaim their kingdom, which the Argus Wake would likely have great hold over, especially considering the presence of how many dark sorcerers are now present in the Syndicate ranks. Clearly, this shadowy organization has been busy with teaching forbidden magic. It's also assumed that the Argus Wake, like the Searing Blade and the Cult of the Darkstrand, is a smaller organization controlled by the Greater Shadow Council. Yes, indeed, the same Shadow Council that operated within the Old Horde during its initial invasion of Azeroth, the same group overseen by Gul'dan, who is called the Darkness Incarnate. Before his death, of course. And this will not be the only time that we encounter the manipulations of the Shadow Council as we travel across Azeroth together. Now, I'm sure that many of you are curious of what happened next with Alterac, as well as the Argus Wake after Classic WoW. And sadly, there isn't really much to say. The Syndicate and the remnants of Alterac have only continued to lose more and more ground since Cataclysm, leading all the way up into the current expansion. Sometimes they appear here and there, but the Syndicate only comes as simple bandits to be disposed of with ease, usually in the Arathi Highlands, rather than former soldiers and militia of a once proud kingdom. And as for the Argus Wake, they themselves never appear again in the lore as an actual organization, but Nagaz makes a reappearance in the Legion expansion as part of the Warlock's Scepter of Sargeras artifact weapon quest chain. Originally, he is presented as an ally to the Warlock player in Legion, assisting him with acquiring the Book of Medivh, until Nagaz betrays the player and attempts to kill him. Now for doing so, of course, Nagaz is killed by the player, and hopefully for good this time, because apparently getting his head cut off in classic WoW wasn't enough to put an end to this orc's schemes. But I guess he was just soul-stoned. But I don't know. For many, the mountains of Alterac remain an out-of-the-way zone in classic WoW, rarely visited because so many of its quests require great amounts of traveling. Players need to form groups to defeat the challenges of these hills, and the fact that this zone's story is so concealed and it's not so obvious upon entry. For most, when they adventure into the Alterac Mountains, they see only a ruined kingdom, populated now by ogres and a mysterious orange mask-wearing organization. But I hope that now, having watched this video, you have a better understanding of not only this kingdom's history, but this forgotten enemy, the Syndicate, from classic World of Warcraft. And like I said in my previous video about the Alterac Mountains, maybe you understand now why going here creates such enchantment for me. Now, I still have a video or two left in me about Hillsbrad Foothills and Alterac Mountains, but I do wonder where we should go next. Should we travel north into the haunted woods of the Western Plaguelands, visit the dwarves of the hinterlands, or perhaps head east into the Arathi Highlands to learn more about Stromgarde and its history? Let me know down in the comments section below, and if you want another video to watch after this one, I highly recommend this Silver Pine Forest video that I made about one of classic WoW's most powerful, if not the most powerful, villains. And now I think it's time for me to end this video with a very popular song that is sung all across the taverns of Azeroth about the fall of the Kingdom of Alterac. Thank you so much for watching, everybody.
Seven crowns once shared the land, all bound by oaths of old. They raised their steel with brother zeal, their banners brave and bold. But one king's heart grew black with greed, his honor lost to flame. He sold his trust for coin and dust, and damned his kingdom's name. He forged his pact in moonlit halls, with whispers sharp as knives. He marched his men on former friends and shattered loyal lives. But traitor's steel is brittle stuff, and soon the tide did turn. The six came down like thunder's crown to make his kingdom burn. His castle cracked, his banners torn, his loyalists all fled. And when the smoke had left the stones, the traitor king was dead. Now travelers say his ghost still walks, chained by the oath he broke. A warning sung in every inn beneath Ale's amber smoke.